Chapter 4. Mike woke with a start the next morning to a loud thump at the door. "Out of bed, quick now. We'll have no lazy boys laying about when there's work to be done," Mr. Friedrich called. Mike tried to jump out of bed, but he grabbed the bedstead for support. Groaning in pain throbbed through the raised welts on his back and legs. The memory of the beating returned in a rush, and his eyes blurred with tears. He'd never been hit like that before. Occasionally he felt the sharp tap of a swell's walking stick or the flick of a cabbie's whip when he darted in someone's way, and he was used to threats of bullies, but he'd always been able to outsmart them. What was he going to do now? He raised his head and brushed the tears from his face. "Mike, my lad," he said to himself, "you'll have to think sharp and fast, because it's sure that you're not going to be accepting another beating like that ever again." The moon had gone down, and it was still far too early for the sun to rise, and the darkness pressed against the window. Mike, his eyes accustomed to the dimness, did not light the lamp. He poured water from the pitcher from the basin and splashed his eyes well. He didn't want them to know he'd been crying. Wincing with each movement, he managed to dry his hands and face and pull on his clothes. He ran his comb through his hair and in just a few minutes clattered down the stairs. He ran toward the lights of the dining room, stopping abruptly just inside the door. Already the Friedrichs were eating. Mrs. Friedrich patted her mouth with her napkin and gave Mike a timid smile, but Mr. Friedrich, without raising his head, said, "After this, if you're late, you'll eat in the kitchen with Marta and Reuben. For now, sit down quickly." Mike hurried to his chair and put his napkin on his lap, and Marta bustled into the room and placed in front of him a plate of sausages, ham slices, biscuits, hot fried apples, and 2 eggs, which stared at him like a pair of golden eyes. "Thanks," Mike whispered to Marta, and eagerly reached for his fork. The soreness in his body didn't keep him from being hungry, but a large hand came down over his, and Mr. Friedrich glowered. "That one word is your prayer?" "No, sir," Mike said. "I was thanking Marta." "Then let us hear your prayer." Mike bowed his head and said the blessing Ma and Da had taught him. As he came to the end, he looked at Mr. Friedrich, hoping the man would now let him eat. The wonderful smells of food were making his stomach rumble with hunger. Finally the hand was pulled away, and Mr. Friedrich said, "That will do," and went back to his food. Mike bent over his plate and ate as greedily as the others. Occasionally he sneaked side glances at them. None of the 3 seemed interested in him at all, not even Gunter. No one spoke of Mike's punishment the night before. Mike would have decided it was only a nightmare, except the ache in his back and legs proved the beating really had taken place. Mr. Friedrich suddenly pushed his chair away from the table and stood. Before Mr. Friedrich could find fault with him, Mike dropped the last bite of biscuit on his plate and scrambled from his chair. "Michael, today I'm going to turn you over to Reuben Starkey," Mr. Friedrich said. "You'll be in his charge." His eyebrows dipped into a scowl, and he tapped the back of his chair impatiently. "Fortunately, Reuben can be a wool gatherer when he should be tending to business, but now that the harvest is over, he's my only farm hand." He blinked as though suddenly recalling that Mike was standing there and continued, "Reuben knows he's to teach and train you in the jobs you'll do on the farm and to keep you busy, out of trouble. He'll report to me on your progress, and if you've been lazy and shirked your chores, we'll see it does not happen again." Mike's chin lifted. He thought, "If it's beating me you're thinking of, then you got another thing coming, because I'm not going to let that happen to me again." He realized his face must have revealed his feelings, because Mr. Friedrich looked a little puzzled and then said less firmly, "Michael, our ways may seem different to you. This is because you have not had a proper upbringing. No one has taught you that the devil makes use of idle hands, so it's up to us to teach you. On a well-run farm there's much to do. You'll work hard, but this is to make a man out of you." He paused. "I'm just a man, Michael. I will not punish you unless you need punishment." Mr. Friedrich stopped speaking and seemed to be waiting for something, so Michael, fighting a boiling resentment, muttered, "Yes, sir." If Mr. Friedrich didn't know anything about his upbringing. Mrs. Friedrich's hands flared as she squeaked, "Michael, you must say, 'Thank you, Mr. Friedrich.'" Mike thought again of the barn and the strap. He had to live with these people. He'd have to follow their rules. He gripped his fists together behind his back, digging his nails into his hands. "Thank you, Mr. Friedrich," he echoed. Mike glanced quickly at Gunter, but Gunter yawned widely and seemed to be completely uninterested in Mike. Maybe the beating Mike had suffered had been enough to satisfy Gunter. Mike hoped he'd have no more trouble from that tub of lard. In his mind he began to hum his sausage song and had to press his lips together to keep from laughing out loud. "Get your coat, go to the barn," Mr. Friedrich said. "Reuben will be waiting for you." As fast as he could, Mike raced up the stairs, snatched his jacket from the bedstead, and tore out the barn. Light was beginning to streak the eastern sky, and the air was so cold it stung like a slap. He gasped and rubbed his arms, trying to get warm. Wolf and Bruna ran toward him, their eyes wary, but Mike stopped and held out the backs of his hands for them to sniff. Satisfied, they accepted him and trod to his side as he entered the barn. The huge barn was almost as clean as the house, and the milk pails gleamed, the harness hanging over the rest of the tidy tack rows, and the farm tools neatly stowed at the far end of the barn. But here the smell of lye soap was overpowered by the fine, warm, sour smell of hay, which was piled high overhead in the loft, and heaped on the floors of the stalls for the horses and cows. Reuben was pouring a foaming bucket of milk into a large gleaming can as Mike came in, and he looked up and swept a thick shock of black hair from his eyes. "Morning," he said. "Morning, Mr. Starkey," Mike said, trying to keep his teeth from chattering. "Is that the best coat they could give you for warmth?" Reuben asked. This is why I came in, sir, Mike said. You can forget the sir and the Mr. Starkey, Reuben told him. He put down the bucket and strode over to Mike. Since we're going to work together, why don't you call me Reuben? I'll call you Michael. He reached out to shake his hand. Mike it is. Now, we'll find you a coat for you. It's time to get the cows to pasture, but they can wait. Reuben's long legs carried him swiftly out the barn. As Mike waited for Reuben to return, he looked around. There was half a dozen cows in the barn, big animals that looked to him with huge brown eyes as he came close. The nearest one shifted in her stall, her broad rump swinging in his direction. Mike quickly backed away. Beyond the cows, he could see two large-eared mules. Beyond them, the horses that had pulled the wagon. The spotted gray was eating, but the tall black tossed his head up and down and stamped his feet, snorting and blowing loud blasts of air from his nose. Mike gazed at the horses with interest and wondered what it would be like to be perched high on one of them, knees tight against the sweating flanks, hands entwined in the flowing mane, racing wildly over the hills, splashing through the streams, the two of them free, with no one to answer to. Fear no more the heat of the sun, nor the furious winter rages. Mike jumped as Reuben spoke behind him. Heat of the sun, not likely when the sun's still not high in the sky. Reuben held out a warm woolen coat, cap, and knit gloves to Mike. It's poetry, Mike. Shakespeare again. Have you ever read the great poets? As Mike gratefully struggled into the warm clothes, Reuben looked at him quizzically and added, Can you read it all? I can read. I even had a book of my own once, Mike said. It was a dime novel. Seth Jones, or Captain of the Frontier. A grand story, full of adventure. Reuben smiled. Not exactly great literature, but at least you can read. Perhaps I can introduce some poets to you. Do they live around here, too? Reuben pulled a small, tattered book of a red cover from his coat pocket and tapped it. They live in here, he said. Will you take a rest? I'll read to you from this book. A man's never alone if he's reading the words of great minds. Mike fastened the last button of his coat and tugged on his gloves. These are a good fit, he said. Mrs. Friedrich has laid by Gunter's outgrown clothes, Reuben said. In this household, nothing's ever wasted or given away freely. I'll ask Mara to put some of his clothes into the chest in your room. He reached into his bin and picked out a long switch, handing it to Mike, and they whistled, and Wolf and Bruna scrambled over to reach his side. Use the switch on the cow's legs if they get out of line on their way to the pasture, Reuben smiled. You'll find that the dogs do most of the work, and they're no good at opening or locking gates. Mike jumped back as Reuben unfastened the gate on the stall, and the cows lumbered out. I didn't know cows were so big, he gasped and ducked as the cow's tail swished past his face. They won't hurt you unless you get close enough to get stepped on, Reuben said. He went from one stall to another, releasing the cows, who filed toward the open barn door, as if they knew was expected of them. Bruna trod to one side, Wolf to the other, nudging and occasionally nipping to keep the big animals in line. Run ahead, open the gate, Reuben told Mike. Mike ran ahead, glad to get past the cows. He raced up the low hill to the fence, made a post laid in a zigzag pattern. Beyond the fence to a broad meadow thick with grass and rimmed far off with deep green pines and smaller trees, their golden orange leaves shimmering in the early morning light. Mike climbed onto the gate to open the latch and jumped down and shoved the gate wide. As the cows went through, Reuben said, Make sure the gate's tightly shut. They're prize cattle, which Mr. Friedrich is fond of reminding me of. He'd be mighty upset if they were to get loose and wander down the road. Will we go with the cows? Mike asked. The cows will take care of themselves, Reuben answered. No, you have other tasks to learn. There's water to bring into the house from the well, wood to chop and pile. There's plenty of field work, from planting to harvesting. You'll help care for all the farm animals, the horses, cows, hogs, pigs, even Mrs. Friedrich's chickens. Pigs, Mike said. Where are the pigs and chickens? As though to answer him, a rooster crowed near the barn. Mike turned to look down the hill to the house, the barn, the vegetable garden, and buildings that were set in the land. What are all those small houses? He asked. Reuben chuckled. The smallest one, which I'm sure you found right away, is the privy. As Mike nodded, Reuben continued. To your left is the smokehouse, over there. That's where the meat's cured and hung. Nearby is the butcher shed, he continued to point. On the far side of the barn is the chicken house. See it? Yes, Mike said. And way over there are the hogs? That building, just behind the house, is an outdoor kitchen to use during the summer's heat. Near it's the well, and the door that slants to the ground leads to a root cellar where beans, corn, squash potatoes, and all the vegetables and fruit that are raised here are stored. Over there's the cabin where I live, with room in it for another hand, although Mr. Friedrich's so tight-fisted when it comes to pay. My only other helper left at the end of last week. Is that why I'm here? Mike asked. Reuben pursed his lips and rubbed his chin. Just between you and me, I do believe Mr. Friedrich was more interested in finding unpaid help than aiding a poor orphan boy. He shook his head. Unfortunately, you're not big or strong enough for some of the jobs. I'm willing to work hard, Mike said quickly. Oh, I believe you are, Reuben studied Mike's face and said, I'll teach you, Mike. Help where I can. Your life with the Friedrichs may not be what you hoped for. Mr. Friedrich demands hard work from everyone, and he pushes himself to work even harder. However, the Friedrichs will give you a warm bed and good food, which is more than what many orphans would have. I'm not an orphan, Mike said. I have a ma. She'll always be my ma, and someday I'm going to see her again. I know I will. Determination and hope are good for the soul, Reuben said. Will your poets say that? Mike asked. No, I did, Reuben said. He put a hand on Mike's shoulder, but Mike winced. In answer to Reuben's puzzled look, Mike said, I'm a bit sore in the back is all. Well, our next chore might loosen up those muscles. We got a barn to shovel out and wash down. I'm game for it, Mike said. Reuben smiled and led the way down the hill. While we're working, we'll talk, he said. I'd like to hear about your journey west. Mike breathed quite quickly as he tried to keep up with Reuben. He liked Reuben. He wanted to be his friend. And sooner or later, Reuben would hear that he'd been a copper stealer. Mike realized he'd rather Reuben heard it from him. There's a lot to tell, he said. There's a lot I already know, Reuben said. Mike looked up as they entered the barn. You mean about why my ma sent my brothers and sisters and me to the west? Every man has a past, Reuben said. What counts is his future. He handed Mike a stiff broom made from tightly knotted and tied reeds. I'll shovel, you sweep. You can tell me more about that outlaw on the train. I never heard of anyone stealing from an outlaw. Well, he'd taken Mrs. Banks' ring, Mike said. Catherine Banks? Oh, yeah, that pretty lady who runs the general store in St. Joseph. Reuben bent to scoop large mounds of hay and dung into a hand barrel. Tell me all about it. It was some time after we left this place called Hannibal, Mike said. Everything happened at once. The train stopped so fast the wheels made an awful screeching noise. Some people started yelling and screaming. There was a lot of men on horseback, and one of them poked his long gun into the window of our car, and a bearded man with his gun ran through the door. He held out a bag and told us to drop our money and jewelry in it. And Mrs. Banks asked the outlaw if he'd let her keep the ring her husband had given her, because it meant a lot to her, but he wouldn't. Mike paused, and Reuben said, Go on. And Mrs. Banks looked crushed and about ready to cry, so I rushed at the outlaw, Mike explained, ducking his head as he said it, the way I'd learned to do it in New York. Reuben didn't respond, so Mike stepped around him with his first stall and attacked the scattered dust and dirt with his broom. And finally, he continued, when the outlaw staggered back to catch his balance, I reached into the bag where the passengers had dropped their money. I got the feel of Mrs. Banks' ring, so I grabbed it, along with a fistful of bills. And Mrs. Banks, she was glad to get her ring back, and Captain Taylor, who was a mighty fine man, said he was proud of me. Some of the passengers, there was this one, Mr. Crandon, was angry. They said I shouldn't have come on the orphan train because I was a pickpocket and couldn't be trusted, and they wanted me to be sent back to New York. You wouldn't want to go back to New York City? Reuben's wide sweeps with the shovel had taken him far ahead of Mike, so Mike struggled to catch up. No, he said. The judge told me that if I get sent back, I'd go to Tombs prison. Reuben stopped and stared at Mike and finally said, Then you must never go back. I stole because we were hungry, Mike said, but I promised Ma and I promised myself I would never steal again. Reuben took Mike's broom and swept the pile of hay and dust and crumbs into his shovel and from there into the hand barrow. I wish no one had to know about it, Mike said. Reuben smiled wryly. When in disguise with fortune in man's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state. He stopped and shook his head. No, Mike, wrong poet. You're not alone. I feel alone. You got a friend right here. With a long finger, Reuben poked his chest. Tears came to Mike's eyes, and his throat was so tight it hurt to speak. Thanks, Mike said. He rubbed hard at his eyes and the backs of his hands. Reuben's voice was cheerful. You got a new family who will come in time to appreciate you, I'm sure. Soon you'll go to school and play games with Gunter. Mike shivered with anger as he thought about what Gunter had done to him. Gunter hates me, has already caused trouble for me. He's a stinking barrel of tallow, Mike muttered. He's a hog. No, he's worse. He's a fat hog. Here now, Reuben said. Nothing good comes from that kind of talk. Get yourself up in the loft. You'll find a rake up there. You can use it to toss fresh hay down to the stalls. Mike scrambled up the ladder, eager to see the loft. But as he reached the top and peered over the rim, he found himself looking directly into Gunter Friedrich's narrowed, angry eyes.